Strength is one of the most misunderstood words in our culture. We celebrate the person who figures it out, the one who doesn't need help, the one who pushes through, keeps going, and somehow manages to hold everything together, no matter what's happening underneath the surface. We admire independence. We respect self-sufficiency. We look to the person who never seems to crack. But let me ask you something. What if the strength that we admire is actually the very thing that's keeping us stuck? What if the belief that you should be able to handle life on your own isn't maturity, but a lie? A lie that sounds responsible. A lie that feels safe. A lie that slowly disconnects you from the very things that would actually help you heal. Because here's the truth. Most people, they don't say this out loud. And that is that a lot of people who look strong on the outside are carrying things alone that are quietly breaking them on the inside. Let me say that again. A lot of people who look strong on the outside are carrying things alone that are quietly breaking them on the inside. Today, we're talking about that lie. The lie of self-reliance. Welcome to Unmasked, where we take off the filters and we get real about faith, failure, and finding freedom. I'm your host, Wesley Farnsworth, and today we're going to start a brand new mini-series called Breaking Free. And over the next 4 episodes, we're going to walk through something that impacts far more people than we realize. And that is the belief that we're supposed to carry life on our own. We're going to talk about why self-reliance feels strong but isn't, how isolation slowly damages us, and why real brotherhood is so powerful, and what it actually looks like to build a life that supports lasting freedom. But before we talk about isolation, before we talk about community, we have to start at the root. The belief that you should be able to do this alone. So take a breath, pull up a chair, and let's get real. This is Unmasked. See, the lie of self-reliance, it doesn't usually show up all at once. It's something that builds over time. It forms through experiences, through moments where trust was broken, where vulnerability didn't go well, where opening up felt like a mistake. Maybe you shared something once and it was dismissed. Maybe you trusted somebody and they let you down. Maybe you learned early that showing weakness wasn't safe. And so you adapted. You told yourself, I'll just handle it. And at first, this decision felt very wise. It felt like you were in control. It felt like maturity. Maybe it even felt like strength. You stopped depending on people. You stopped risking vulnerability. You learn how to manage your life in a way that protects you. And the crazy part is, it works. At least for a while. You become more capable, more independent, more self-sufficient. You figure things out. You push through. You get things done. And people around you, they start to notice. They respect you. They trust you. They even depend on you. And without realizing it, you begin to build your identity around being the one who has it together, the one who doesn't need help, the one who carries things quietly, but no one sees the cost because the cost is hidden. The same mindset that makes you look strong externally really starts isolating you internally. You stop sharing honestly, not because you're trying to deceive anyone, but because it doesn't feel necessary anymore. You've learned how to handle things on your own, so why bring anyone else into it? You start giving safe answers. You say, I'm good. I'm just busy. It's been a week, but I'm fine. And technically, none of that is a lie. You may be good. You may be busy. It may have been a week. But if you're being honest, it's also not the truth. Because over time, you get really good at managing what people see. You share enough to stay connected, but not enough to really be known. And that is where the shift happens. You're no longer responsible. You're isolated. And isolation doesn't always look like being alone. You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely on your own. I know that I have been there. Have you? Self-reliance, though, can feel like strength. One of the reasons that this lie is so dangerous is because it feels right. It feels responsible to carry your own weight. It feels mature to not burden other people. It feels strong to push through without needing help. But there's a difference between responsibility and self-reliance. Responsibility says, I'll do my part. Self-reliance says, I'm on my own. Responsibility is healthy. Self-reliance, when taken too far, slowly cuts you off from the very relationships that God designed to support you. Because from the very beginning, independence was never the goal. In Genesis 2:18, God says, it is not good for man to be alone. That's not a statement about weakness. That's a statement about design. You were not created to carry life by yourself. But see, there's a spiritual impact that no one talks about. So we're going to get even deeper. Because self-reliance doesn't just affect your relationships with people. It affects your relationship with God. Because when you believe that you have a handle on everything on your own, you stop depending. You still believe in God. You still show up. You still pray. But the honesty begins to fade. Your prayers become more controlled, more filtered, and less raw. You stop bringing him the full weight of what you're carrying because somewhere along the way you started believing that you should have already handled it. And slowly, without realizing it, your faith shifts from dependence to management, from surrender to control. But Jesus makes it clear in John 15:5. And he says, apart from me, you can do nothing. That's not meant to discourage you. It's meant to be a reminder to you that real strength doesn't come from independence. It comes from connection. He wants you to connect with him and give him everything. If you've ever tried to carry everything by yourself, you know how it plays out. It's exhausting. At first you manage, and then you push, and then you start to feel it. The pressure builds, the weight increases, and eventually something inside you gets tired. not physically, deeper than that. You get tired of always being the strong one, the one that is always holding it together. You get tired of not having a place where you can just be honest. And that kind of tired, my friends, does not go away with rest. Because it is not a schedule issue. It's a load issue. You're carrying something that you were never meant to carry alone. And no amount of strength can fix that. At some point, every single person has to have a moment where they realize that what they're doing isn't working anymore. It might not be a dramatic moment. It might just be a quiet thought. I can't keep doing it like this. And that moment when it happens, it matters. Because it's the beginning of breaking the lie. Not fixing everything, not solving everything. Just recognizing that something isn't right. That maybe strength isn't what you thought it was. That maybe asking for help isn't weakness. That maybe the life that you've built around independence isn't actually leading you to freedom. So what's the first step towards freedom? Breaking the lie of self-reliance doesn't mean become dependent on everyone. It means that you become honest. It means that you start letting the right people into the right places. It means acknowledging that you were never designed to carry life alone. And that step is simple. It's not easy, but it is simple. You tell the truth. Maybe for the first time in a long time. Not to everyone, but to someone. And at that moment, everything changes. Because it's in that moment that you stop carrying it alone, and the weight that you had been carrying starts to shift. So let me ask you something. Where in your life have you been trying to handle things on your own? What have you convinced yourself that you should be able to carry? What have you kept to yourself because it felt easier than letting someone in? And what would it look like for you to stop doing that? Not all at once, but just enough to take one step towards honesty. Because breaking free does not start with a big moment. It starts with telling the truth. Next time on Unmasked, we're going to go a little bit deeper. And we're going to take the next step in this journey. And we're going to talk about the cost of isolation. Because self-reliance doesn't just keep you busy. It slowly pulls you away from the very relationships that help you grow. We'll talk about why isolation is so dangerous and how stepping out of it begins to restore connection, clarity, and hope. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone that came to mind. And remember this, you don't have to carry life alone. You were never meant to. And grace is greater than your past. And real freedom begins the moment that you choose to live unmasked. God bless you.